Battletech tactics. As a Mechwarrior, representing that narrative physically, I mean, you're the mech commander issuing orders to your mechs on the table. But inside that mech, and vehicles to an extent, depending on the skills, you have this Mechwarrior executing your commands. Most of us focus on the gunnery skill. This is the starting number that you need that's modified up or down, what you need to hit. And most of the game, of course, is that. We looked at previously, just a few moments ago, this idea of making pilot rolls, pilot skill checks, when that happens and how that happens. Now let's look at consciousness checks, making a consciousness roll for your Mechwarrior. And this can be very, very dangerous when it happens. And the effects stack across games, especially if you're playing a campaign or if you're kind of keeping track of MVP, best pilot, nominating for experience. So making a consciousness check happens when physically the head of the mech takes damage. When you take a hit to the head, it could be a PPC, assuming the head doesn't get blown off. If it's a PPC, if it's a machine gun, you take a hit to the head. If it's a punch, now you have to make a consciousness check. And on the Mechwarrior sheet, all the sheets are a little bit different, the numbers get higher and higher and higher. So you start off with a really easy number, unless you roll like snake eyes, you're okay. What that represents is that you took physical damage. I mean, you took that shock. You're in the mech head, you've got the armor, you've got the neuro helmet set up. I mean, we're looking at inner sphere. You're strapped in, but you just took some serious damage. That's literally rattled your brain and your body with the feedback and the kinetic transfer. So this is an attempt for you not to be knocked out, not to be dazed, not to be stunned, not to be overloaded. I mean, it kind of captures all of that narrative. Where this affects is in the phase of the game. So let's say I run up point blank. We're point blank, 1 hex away. I'm gonna be punching you. I'm in my T-bolt. I'm going to punch you. You hit me in the head with a PPC. You hit me in the head with whatever, but it doesn't blow my head clean off or go to internals. That's all separate. I make a consciousness check. If I fail, then now for the next turn, I'm out. At the beginning of the next turn, you have to make a consciousness check to see if you can wake up from it. And again, these earlier rolls, they're going to be fine. Well, the odds are in your favor to make them. Again, it is possible to roll snake eyes. But every hit you take after you take that consciousness check, you mark off the box and the roll becomes higher. It becomes harder. So taking 2 or 3 hits in a battle, assuming your head isn't blown clean off, there's a chance you'll pass out. Now, in most games, or I should say pickup games or one-off games, just put together a generic lance, this isn't going to be a major long-term problem because you're going to reset. But if you're in a campaign or if you're awarding micro experience, that tracks with your Mechwarrior. Now you're going to have to deal with that potentially in future games. There are ways bringing in the narrative or the role-playing to spend experience to get rid of that, to clear that. But this is something that happens at different points. So an example from a recent battle. I was playing my Thunderbolt, and I love the Thunderbolt for what it is. It's an earlier design. It's got some heat issues, but it's solid. It's solid all around. And my opponent had a Catapult. On a side note, Catapult is a fantastic mech. There are just certain machines, even for the inner sphere, early inner sphere tech, that are just beast mode. Good armor, good mobility, redundancy. Catapult has the redundancy in the missiles, has the redundancy in the lasers. I push that up to my Battletech channel, the archive, the playlist. Fantastic. Go out and get a Catapult. And if you've got the game of Armored Combat, you already have one. I mean, it's great they included that in the box. And I should say it's scaled appropriately. The previous plastic sculpt was a little bit too small, in my opinion. I mean, it was very light mech in appearance. So I'm chasing down this Catapult. This thing was harassing my lance like crazy. Just indirect fire, direct fire, moving around, lasers, and finally I just had enough. So I'm like, you know what? I shouldn't do this. I'm breaking ranks. I'm going rogue. I send my Thunderbolt off because I'm like, the T-Bolt could take the damage, and if I can get up there, I'm going to do some damage. I'll push the heat a little bit. Track the catapult down to a hill. It's on top of the hill. It's got perfect vantage, firing. I have perfect shooting to it, but I do have to spend movement points to make it up the hill, and I'm already running as it is. T-Bolt, it's not a slow mech, but it's certainly by no means in the weight class as a fast mech. I am within running distance away. And my opponent, of course, is going to shoot, and then next turn, based on initiative, jump out of there. I hit it with the large laser right in the head. Boom, okay? Doesn't blow it clean off. Pilot goes night-night. You have to take that consciousness check at the end of the turn. Fails. So now the mech is out. So I'm like, okay, I've got a free shooting. Makes the consciousness check to wake up. Doesn't wake up. Well, now I'm like, this is interesting, because now I'm going to run up there. I literally run up there, and this thing is powered down. You know, my T-Bolt is Mechwarrior to Mechwarrior. I'm peering in. That Mechwarrior's night-night just passed out. Bam, bam. I punch it in the head. Of course, I punch, and I don't nail the head. It then wakes up and they run away. So I say that because, you know, it's a what if. I think tactically it happens every now and then where you're like, wow, I can't believe that happened in Battletech. You know, it's like first shot with the AC-20, headshot blows it off. You're like, I can't believe that just happened in Battletech. You know, the game pauses for the moment. But understanding the potentially crippling effects if you fail, especially if it stacks, this could be potentially another reason why you don't want to be surrounded. And it's not even by autocannon 20s and PPCs. This is what makes cluster-type weapons like short-range missiles and LRMs a little bit deadly. That cluster spreads out. You have 2 or 3 mechs firing them. You could take a headshot. And while it's not going to blow your head off, you make the consciousness check. So in terms of utilization, to kind of wrap it up, most of us are going to be using the gunnery skills, the shooting skills. That's the number that a lot of us focus on. Pilot skills, it's going to happen every now and then. There are a number of tactical instances where you could avoid them or not have to take them. And then the consciousness rolls on the Mechwarrior, they happen in much less frequency. But again, depending on if the game is a one-off or if it's a campaign, could potentially be very, very crippling.